Hello, everyone. I would like to get started and welcome everyone to our meeting today, especially to our special guest, Dr. Vinita Puri. Now I'll do a round of introduction. First, I'll tell you about myself. I am Christina Carty-Godin, a professional mediator here in Canada, and I'm one of the founding members of the group Mediators and Associates that we connect globally to support each other. I'll do a round of introduction. I'll go to our special guest afterward. So could we go and call the name? Thomas, could you introduce yourself, please? Thomas? Are you having a little difficulty there?
Okay. Apparently. Well, he's getting through? No.
Or maybe
well, starters. Yes.
You can go ahead, Michael, until Thomas get a chance to.
Okay. My name is Michael Johnson, and I'm from the UK, engineering, and it's pretty cold here.
Oh, lucky you.
Thank you, Michael. Garnian, could you introduce yourself, please?
Afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Garnian Hazel. I'm from Jamaica.
Thank you. I think Thomas had some issue, but he can also introduce himself when he gets a chance to. Do we have any other yet? No?
Okay. Let's see.
Okay.
I'm Windsor Thompson. I'm in the greater Nashville area. I'm a pro bono mediator listed with the Tennessee Supreme Court. I work in the family area. And then I'm a CEO for a company called InvoCare, and we have the government exclusive rights for Reject Safe Barrier Bandage. I've been a mediator since 2015.
Wow.
Thank you, Thomas. Nice to have each and every one of you. Now I'll go to my special guest. She has something special to share with us today. Dr. Vinita Puri, it's your time.
Okay, thank you. It's so wonderful to be in the company of my peers, my colleagues, people who are passionate about social justice and community and spirituality and just bringing people together. Conflict resolution is really a unique community of people who want to make the world a better place, who believe in peace, who believe in love. And that's something that I deeply identify with. And as part of being a mediator myself, I think it's first very important that we acknowledge where we are. And I hear from who's on so far is that it's the international forum here. But in Canada, as a mediator, how I always introduce myself is to first recognize and appreciate the historical connection to where I live. So I am proud to be Canadian, but I do also know that this is not a land that was, it was a land that was colonized, and it was a land that was First Nations. So here I want to recognize that Canada is a land for the Métis, the Inuit, and other Indigenous peoples that have made and shaped the strengthening of this country. And also, I think it's really important to recognize that First Nations communities, truly traditional communities, have subscribed to conflict resolution processes that are very, very different from how Eurocentric colonizers had come and sort of made decisions about who can do what and what can happen. So I really respect and very humbled by the work and the elders that have taught me and trained me to respect people. It's also aligned with who I am. I'm a South Asian woman. I'm born with disabilities, but I don't see that as necessarily my identity. Those are traits that I've inherited. And My family is also, I'm very grateful for my family, very, very much so. They've been my support system. They've been able to really help me to become the person I am. And I think most profoundly, what they've done is they've instilled within me a deep sense of spirituality and a sense of purpose, which is really my strength. I think more than anything I've achieved, it is through them and because of them and because of their love and helping me to understand that actually we share this world, and it doesn't matter what gender we are, what race we are, what religion we are, what anything we are, we're one humanity, right? And if we really understand that and we really nurture that, then everything that we do in life is meant for the common good. And it's not meant for selfishness and for how I can get ahead and how I can beat someone. And what I really appreciate about this, Christina, is that you've invited me as a guest into your home almost, and you've welcomed me. And I think it's so important to have support system in life and be truly a community person where you get happiness from seeing other people happy, and you want to raise awareness. And as a teacher, I know that's your background. You're a teacher, you're an educator, you're a facilitator, and you're a mediator. And that's what mediators do. They bring people together to the table to share and support one another. And so I'm really humbled and grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Perry. My pleasure. That's my whole aim of starting the group, is to bring people together globally, to share, to connect, to help each other. That's my main aim of starting it.
That's
Thank
wonderful.
you so much. So I'm going to do a little dive into the agenda today. So we did our welcome and our remarks. We introduced our special guest. She will give us some background later. And we look at the objectives of this meeting. Why are we here today? We are busy people, yes. So we look at the objectives, what we want to achieve from this meeting today. We'll do a little bit of icebreaker, a little housekeeping. Then we go right into our discussion topic. And there's a little segment later for question and answer. I call it the Q&A segment. Then we have a little call to action. Then our special guest will give the the closing remarks, and then we wrap right up. So to get into it now, let's go right ahead and tell us the goal of this meeting. As a quick reminder, our goal for this meeting today is to foster a meaningful connection and inspire attendees by sharing personal stories of triumph over adversity, showcasing resilience, strategies, and highlighting the key factors contributing to individual and collective success. And that is Dr. Vinita. Her pet name is Resilience, and we'll know about that later. A little icebreaker here. And I'm going to throw it out. There are 25 hours in one day as of today. How would you spend your extra hour? Dr. Vinita, would you like to take that first? It's just going right across.
I think meditation for myself. I think I spend a lot of time outwardly doing volunteer work, working with clients, doing things for the family. And I think it's really sacred and important for a person to do self-care, engage in self-care and take care of themselves. And any moment I get, I love to be with myself. I enjoy my own company. And I love to just go for long walks and reflect and just have that inner space to pray in my own way.
Thank you so much. Who would like to take the other one? As of today, 25 hours will be in a day. How would you spend your extra hour?
I think people are still shocked that they get an extra hour.
I think so.
Just
Thompson.
never enough
Yeah.
time, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I usually wake up at 5:30 without an alarm clock.
Same
And,
here. Same here.
I was very fortunate today, for whatever reason. The gift was I woke up at 8:30, so I actually got 3 extra
Wow.
hours today on
That's-
Friday.
That's incredible.
And one of my partners knows that I get up at 5:30. He texted me, and he's on the road. He had thing we're going to talk about, and he said in the text, "I know you're up. Call me." And I read this at like 8:45, and so I called him at 8:45, and he said, "What happened? Are you okay?" Just expecting, and I don't usually sleep like that. So I got 3 hours today.
It's great.
Awesome.
Do you know
awesome.
what made the difference? Like, I mean, that's fantastic that you slept 3 more hours, but were you more relaxed perhaps the night before, or do you know what you did
It was
differently?
pharmaceutically induced. My wife gave me 25
Okay.
milligrams of Benadryl.
Okay.
Because I was up early. I had a business meeting early yesterday morning. Took a lot of mental horsepower.
I
That was
see.
the
Got
wrong
it.
thing. And I'm also a critical care person. My wife had broken her hand, and so I'm doing dressing changes on her splint every day,
Oh, okay.
twice a day. So, and she said, "You had a big day, and I want to make sure you get sleep, and I know you try to get up." And so she helped me with that. I hope
That's kind.
Awesome. Awesome. Michael, could you tell us what would you do with your extra day, please? Thank you for sharing, Thompson. Thank you so much.
Consider myself to be a people person, and my ultimate goal is to be a public speaker of multiple languages. So that extra hour will go into a second language, learn a second language, and a third and a fourth.
It's fantastic.
Okay. Thank you for sharing, Michael. Thank you so much. Garnian, could you tell us what will you do with your extra hour?
The extra hour I use it for a bit of me time, get a bit of rest and relaxation.
Sorry, Garnian, I didn't hear that properly.
I would use it to get a bit of rest and relaxation, a bit of me time.
Okay, thank you so much, Garnian. Thank you. As for me, I am so busy. I wish we actually had 25 hours in a day. I would actually use that extra hour to get some rest. I am so busy.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing. Now we go to a little housekeeping. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. You can use the raise hand feature to indicate that you want to speak. During the discussion, if you want to join in to give a comment or to give an input, please use the raise hand feature. Utilize the chat to provide feedback and comment. And save, if you have important questions and answers, or you need answers to them, you can save it to the end for the question and answer segment. Thank you so much. So we will go, I know time is very important, so we'll go straight into our discussion. And I will start very simple as we have some question here for Dr. Vinita Puri, but we're going to start very simple. Doctor, tell us, for those of us who don't know you very well, tell us about you and what you have been through.
Okay, well, that's a pretty loaded question. My name is Resilience. That's my nickname that was given to me by my students, my former students. I used to teach at a community college, and I used to work with at-risk youth at one point. And, you know, I never shared what I had gone through until later in life when I did become a teacher. And I felt like it was that type of profession, you know, I think, you know, Christina, because you're a teacher as well, is it helps you to learn a lot about yourself when you are engaging and teaching others. And I started to reflect on my life, not just in that moment, but of all the things, because some of my students would ask me questions like, well, what drew you to this subject? Like I used to teach social service work and criminology and all kinds of things. And why are you interested in this stuff? And the truth is, I've always been interested in human behavior and why do people act the way they do, because I don't understand a lot of people as much as I do understand, but there are a lot of questions I had. I was always a curious child. And that's one great thing is my family always encouraged me to ask questions. There's no silly thing, you know, ask away. They were hardworking immigrants who came to Canada from India, and they work long, long hours. And so my grandparents are really the ones who raised me, took care of me at home. And I was born with a congenital birth defect known as aniridia. And I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with that disorder, but it is a really rare kind of disease where the iris is not fully formed in either eye. And so because of that, I am unable to filter light very well. So if there's ever, you know, fluorescent lights or overheads or anything like that, there's just a lot of glare and it's kind of blinding for me. I cannot focus or see clearly through my pupils. At that time, I wasn't diagnosed with limbic cell deficiency, which I recently got diagnosed with. But essentially, it was hard for me to see much. And back then, there wasn't a lot of technology available. Actually, there were no such thing as computers, believe it or not. I'm that old. But I recall when I was in high school is when actually computers were invented. But before then, it was just really, really tough for me in school. I used to sit in the front of the class because I couldn't really see very well. And I don't know if you remember, but there were those overhead projector machines that the teachers would use. There weren't like PowerPoints or things where you can darken backgrounds and things. So it was just fluorescent and bright. And they used to use those like markers that were green and bright. And I couldn't see anything. And I also was I dressed well, but you know, again, coming from like an immigrant family, you know, we didn't have a ton of money back then. And so I dressed conservatively as well. You know, my grandparents did raise me. So I was very shy, I was very quiet, and I felt embarrassed because I couldn't really participate in a lot of things that the kids could do, because even playing sports was challenging for me because, you know, especially like baseball or things where you have to see a ball and it's like far away and then it like comes close to you and then you can see. So those kinds of things, like I just never fit in. And also back then, there weren't a lot of South Asian people, believe it or not. And, you know, now like Peel region is pretty much people of my background or people of color in general. So it's very diverse now, but back then it wasn't. And I was born in the 70s. So this was like, I'm talking about the 80s right now. It just, there was not really a lot of understanding about diversity. So they actually assume that just because I look the way I did and I, you know, I have curly hair and, you know, darker skin and, you know, I talk different, I look different, that I should go into a link program. So they actually put me in an ESL program, even though I could speak English, like my parents did. My grandparents spoke Punjabi at home, but I still could speak English, but they just assumed that because I didn't look a certain way that I kind of belong in this special class. So even more so, it added to my inferiority complex and me not feeling like I belong. And I was severely, and it hurts to even talk about it still, but I was severely bullied in school. Now there's a lot of awareness about bullying and its long-term effects on mental health, but back then nobody really talked about it, and I was very embarrassed. And a lot of terrible things happened to me. Some of them were very traumatic. I was recall being pushed under the bus at one point, being kicked because you know, the public school bus would come. So you get on, nobody wants you to sit beside them. And then, you know, I would be harassed, you know, touched, bullied, beaten up. And then at the back of the bus, oftentimes kicked in the stomach or even in my eye and all of that. And they would laugh at me and ridicule me and all kinds of things. And also I remember like taking my lunchbox to school, and also just, you know, sometimes kids, like now eating curry is exotic, right? But back then, if you're eating something that smells foreign or from a different culture, they would say, ew, curry and cooties. And, when you're a kid, that is a big deal. And then again, I felt like, not included. And obviously that I was somehow inferior. And it was just really tough. And so I think what starts to happen, I guess I realized later, is that I started to, I guess, not be proud of my culture. I was ashamed to be Indian. I didn't really feel like I was Canadian or Indian, like I didn't fit in anywhere. And I think this is a common feeling that a lot of kids feel. Now I think things are thankfully changing, and there's just more people. And so because of that, you feel like, okay, I'm not alone. But when you're on your own, it's really tough. But those experiences were difficult, and teachers didn't take it seriously. My parents did try to talk to the teachers and address it, but they didn't do anything. And they said, well, it's your daughter and she's the one who's easy to make fun of. And they really dismissed me a lot. And because I couldn't see, like I had this eye condition, I was referred to the Canadian National Institute of the Blind. So I did start getting support services, but a lot of those services are technology based. And back then there was no technology like that, right? There was no like iPhones and cell phones, and this was like back in the day. So really it was very limited what they could offer. There wasn't really much they could do. And I was just not interested in being in school. Like I would rather not go to school. I started skipping school sometimes. I was sort of in my own world. I got severely depressed, developed like eating disorder, anxiety, all kinds of stuff. And I just, the teacher said, your daughter is probably not going to make it past high school. Like she's not very smart. She's useless. And so, and it's so interesting because the more people tell you something, you start to believe it. And now when I teach cognitive behavioral therapy, like I get it. I'm like, oh my God, the more you tell yourself something, the more you really do believe that about yourself. And, thankfully, my family always gave me a positive message. You can do anything you want to do. You can do anything you put your mind to. We believe in you. And thankfully, they instilled that spirituality in me, like I said, which to me is energy. It means like a higher power. And because if I didn't have that, I would really, I don't know. I don't even know if I'd be here, to be honest with you. And that happens to a lot of people. So I just sort of wanted to share that because that is really the trajectory behind why I wanted to become a social worker, why I wanted to help others, why I got interested in criminology, why I got interested in social work, because actually my first job was with the John Howard Society. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with who they are, but they work with men in conflict with the law. So they're offenders, people who've committed crimes, and giving them opportunities to rehabilitate themselves. And actually my PhD dissertation was in the same topic, is on offenders and helping them to rehabilitate and change without actually putting them in jail, because jail, I believe, makes people worse. So that's something I fell into because I thought, what, not just helping the victims, but helping the perpetrators, because the only way to make change happen is if you actually change the way the bully thinks. If the bully is hurting people and harming people, you want to understand, why are they doing this? Like, what have I done to you that I deserve you like hurting me? And I always wanted to understand deep down, why did people want to abuse me that way and hurt me that way? Was I bad? Was I deserving of that? Is that something God wanted for me? Is it, you know what I mean? Like I had all these questions. I wanted to understand what makes people, and that's what was drawn to conflict resolution. That's what was drawn to mediation, because stop the violence. Like, there's so many types of violence in this world, and it's not just physical, it's emotional, it's psychological. There's so many types of violence that exist. And I truly believe that my purpose here is to raise awareness and consciousness, whether it's through, counseling or through mediation or through education or whatever form it may be, that these things that happen in childhood, they have long-lasting impacts on a person. And we create criminals, we create violent society because we perpetuate those things, whether on social media or through our own actions or through having poor role models or whatever. And as a society, we need to build solidarity like we are today and talking about common things that will make our world better by coming together, by building community, by supporting each other. That is the only way to obliterate violence, right? So when people ask me who I am, I really have a strong sense of purpose, and that is my main gift, I think. It's a gift because despite my challenges, I think that was the only way God can only come through you through showing you things that you don't like or making you feel certain things so that you know what motivates you to do certain work, right? So whenever I do talks, whenever I teach, whenever I do this kind of stuff, I don't feel like it's work. Like, to me, this is my joy, it's my passion, it's what drives me. So that is who I am.
Wow. I have so many questions, but I'm going to allow, I am so intrigued already, and we are in early stages in the discussion. But I'm going to have Thomas have a question for you, and I'm going to let it be an interactive session. I'm going to allow Thomas to come in and ask his question. Please unmute, Thomas, and ask your question.
Me?
Oh, yeah, go right ahead.
Were you raised as an only child, and who are your children's support system? Like the people in your crew, if you will, as a child.
So I have an older brother, and that's it. So it was just myself and my brother. So I only had one sibling, and my brother did try to help me as much as he could. A lot of the bullies did, when they were trying to physically beat me up, he did try sometimes to intervene, and I still remember he had broken noses and he was bleeding and stuff, his jaw and everything. So he tried to help me, but there, unfortunately, nothing else. There wasn't, I had no friends. I've actually never had friends really until later in life. I didn't really trust anyone. I was really a loner. I was very shy. I'm like completely different from who I am today.
Are you familiar with ACE scores?
ACE scores? Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you for your question, Thomas. Thank you so much. It's an interactive session. Michael, Kadisha, would you like to ask anything? Garnian, do you have any question for our special guest? Or can I move on? Okay. Dr. Vinita, I listen to you, and I mean, as a teacher, I can relate. And Kadisha is also, welcome Kadisha. She's also connected from the UK. She's a teacher there in the UK as well.
Fantastic.
Yes, welcome Kadisha, welcome to our session. I can't imagine how that could have been on you. How did it affect your social and your academic life? Because I know going through all these things, after a while, when you feel like you didn't want to go to school, what drives you? What motivates you? How did you get that inner drive, that intrinsic motivation to really, through your teenage years, not even as an adult yet, through your teenage
years were, impossible. They were really, really hard. I was even hospitalized once. I remember I tried committing suicide. I was very, very depressed. I hated myself. I was also very overweight. And I guess I used to cope by eating, and I was chubby. So that's just another reason why society doesn't accept you, right? So I was miserable. I was, but I loved my grandma. And I remember that another time I tried to run away from home, and I guess I started to get involved with not a great friend. I thought I met finally a friend. And so I, what happens is when you have such low self-esteem and you just are so desperate to be noticed and to have a friend, that I was willing to do anything. Like I, started to dabble in things maybe I shouldn't have dabbled in. And I tried to run away from home. And I remember my grandmother, one day when I had packed all my stuff and I had a fight with my dad and I was ready to leave the house. She said, are you really going to leave? Like, after all that I've done for you and I've nurtured you and we've loved you and we've supported you, you're just going to walk away? And my grandmother was somebody like, you can't, like, I respected her so much. Right. And so I just couldn't go. Right. And it was hard. And back then, like my dad, like my dad's always supported me, always motivated me, but he was also back then, like he, like he's a parent, right? Like he doesn't understand what's wrong with me. Why am I behaving this way? And they were frustrated too. Like, how do we support this girl? Because I had behavioral problems, right? Like I wasn't listening to people. I was being rebellious. And so, like he was like, fine, you want to go, leave the house, right? And so I was like, fine, I'm going. But is my grandma and my mom, they stopped me. And so I didn't go, but then I was hospitalized. And there was a moment in the hospital where I was looking in the ceiling and like, they were giving me medication. And I was like, okay, Meeta, like, let's be straight with each other. So it's the first conversation I'm having myself. I go, okay, either you're going to live or you're going to die. That's it, right? Two choices, right? And so, I mean, if you're going to live, this is not the kind of lifestyle you should live, right? Like either you kind of pull up your socks or do something, or you just like stay like in a hospital and taking medication and be one of those kind of people, right? And what are you going to choose? So I don't know. It was just kind of one of those, sometimes you have those finite moments in life where you're just reflecting and you just realize that this is just not the way to go. I didn't know how I would change it, but I knew that number one, I hated my appearance. I hated how I looked. I hated just everything about myself. So where do I start? So I tried to like lose weight. So that was the first thing, but to the point of like eating disorder almost, right? So exercising all the time, not eating anything, like the extreme, right? Try to like do anything to hate yourself. And so I understand now when I work with clients who like self-sabotage or do self-harming behavior, because it's safer to hurt yourself than to take it out on like a bully or the world, or like you're mad, but you don't know what to do with that anger. And interestingly, I began specializing in anger management later on in my life because I understand anger, right? Like anger is not just this extroverted thing, but it comes out in different ways. And so, I did also have something in me, I don't know what it was, that I wanted to prove people wrong about me. And I'm like, you know what? The teachers always said I was not smart, and they always said that I wouldn't get past high school. They told my parents that. They said, she's like, there's no point. Don't waste your time with her. She's nothing but trouble. But thank goodness that I was born into a home where my family didn't just discard me. They said, no, like you're going to prove these people wrong, right? So that was my motivation. I know that shouldn't be the motivation, but I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to work super hard. And to the point though, I think what happened was it's like you switch off and you become a perfectionist. And this is where imposter syndrome begins, where you work so hard to the point of, like burnout to prove to others that you are enough. And that is actually a terrible thing. But my whole life, I have never felt I was enough. My entire life. And it started from that point. And, at that time, I couldn't identify it because it did help me in many ways. And in the beginning, yes, I started getting good grades. and I started to do well. And then I pushed the envelope a little bit, and yeah, I did pass high school, and there you go. And then I did do more other things. So I just kept going with that my whole life, getting more degrees, going, you know, achieving more goals, doing more stuff. But after a while, I realized that that is unhealthy, because you, not just you burn out, but it's, why are you doing this? It was only when I turned 40 when I realized that, like, okay, who am I proving this to? Okay, I have all these certificates and awards and degrees, but now what? Like, now I can look at myself in the mirror. Now I can say, I love you, Benita, that you're enough. Like, is that why I did all this stuff? And that's why when you asked me to, like, first talk about all my accomplishments and stuff, I'm like, to me, all these certificates, awards, degrees, trophies, and all that stuff, that is not who I am. That is who I thought I should be, so that the world would accept who I am.
Wow.
And that is not healthy, and that is wrong, absolutely wrong. You know, and especially if, like, if I'm the type of person I am, I see people's pain, because I've been there. I know what it's like not to feel welcome, not to feel included, to be marginalized. Yes, I might not have the same oppressions as someone else. Like, somebody might be poor, somebody might have other trauma or other types of, you know, oppressions that I don't face. But at the same time, you know, because I have faced certain things emotionally and spiritually, I feel like I understand. I have that compassion, I have that empathy, and thank God for that, right? Because, like, life experience is the greatest teacher. You don't get that from getting a master's degree or a doctorate or anything. You get that from life experience, you know? And so that's sort of what I wanted to share on that.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Puri. Dr. Puri, I can tell you that it's sometimes I wonder, are you one person that's been through all these things and can share?
Other people,
Sure.
other people have been through so much more. I mean, yeah,
I can understand.
yeah.
I can understand. There's a question from Kerisha. She's asking, what is the most powerful tool that you have used to overcome adversity?
Well, that's a great question. I think my spirituality, like I was saying before, and when I say spirituality, it means that there is a power, there's a force that's greater than myself. And that's obvious, right? Like, even with COVID, we know there's many things in the world or life that we cannot control. Like, there are things that beyond our control, beyond our power. And it's very important to surrender to that, because if you think you're in control all the time, you're going to be stressed out all the time, because you don't have a lot of things in your control. There's some things that we do have in our control and some things we don't. And whenever I do education or I teach people anger management skills or conflict resolution, all that, I talk about that. I go, okay, you got angry because somebody pushed your buttons, correct? They're like, yes, that person triggered me. They made me mad. And I'm like, okay, but who is in the driver's seat? Are you in control of your emotions, right? Like, if other people can so easily push your buttons, do you not have a mind where you can, like, it doesn't filter through? Like, are you going to really give them that power to make you be a robot and do whatever they say? And then I think that point kind of sinks in, and no. And whenever I teach that, I'm actually talking to myself, because it's true. Doesn't matter if the world doesn't understand you, or if they think you're not pretty, or if they think you're not smart, or they don't think whatever. It matters more what you think about yourself.
Very important.
You know? And if I love myself, I'm loving God. And because I feel God is within everyone. And what I mean by that is it's energy, right? It's energy that brings people together, that binds the universe together. And so us even sharing, even though this is online, but being able to share from around the world and be a part of this and sharing that energy, talking to each other, engaging each other, motivating each other. This is energy at work. And that to me is like God, right? And so if I speak to myself, and this is what we teach in cognitive behavioral therapies, but same principle, the more I say to myself, I am enough, I believe I can restructure my thoughts to the point where I actually start to believe that too. So just like I was brainwashed to think I am not enough and I'm not worthy and I'm not lovable, I can train myself to think the opposite. And what is that? That is energy, right? So if I give myself positivity or negativity, whatever I choose to do, that is going to manifest itself, right? So for me, that is the greatest tool, is to talk to yourself. And that's why when you had that icebreaker, what would you do by yourself, like for that extra hour? It's actually because most of my life I was running away from myself.
Wow.
And now I'm like, I want to be with myself. For the first time when I was 40, I told myself, I love myself. I'm 44 now, but that is when I started to like myself. It was so sad. But it's like, hey, it's like midlife crisis. You know, I went through a lot of other things as well, but I'm like, no, you know, this is a turning point for me. And I'm going to start to do all the advice that I give others. And it works.
That's awesome. But you know what I admire most of all? At some point in your life that you decide to take a turn and to say, okay, I'm running away from myself, but at some point I need to stop because I cannot run away from myself. I cannot get rid of me. So there's no getting around that. So
And
that's a good turning point right there.
And you know what I tell a lot of clients, Christina, is that I say, look, you were with yourself the day you were born, and you're going to be with yourself the day you die. Everybody else, whether it's family or friends or whatever, they just come in and out. It's like a play, right? Like how Shakespeare said, but you are the star of your own life. And so if you have to start to like yourself, you have to start spending time with yourself, you know, more than anyone else.
Enjoying your own company.
Hey, self-love. That's why on Facebook, I have no shame. I take pictures of myself traveling by myself, eating the food I want to eat, not feeling guilty about it and all that, because why not? And is it unusual that I travel by myself, or I like my own company, or like, you know, they're like, isn't that lonely? I'm like, no, you can be in a relationship. And unfortunately, I have been in relationships where you can be with someone and be very lonely.
Wow.
And that is worse, to be in a marriage or be in a relationship with someone and be lonely. That's
you know
worse.
What? I noticed you got a heart a while ago from Khadijah, because she's one person. She's one of our admin in the group. Michael is also an admin. And Khadijah always speak about enjoying your own company.
Yes.
And also I noticed you get a heart at that point. She's in agreement. And I'm sure all of us are in agreement with that. Yeah. But I want to go to this question. As you spoke about the imposter syndrome, Dr. Vinita, tell us, at that point, you do all of these studies to prove to the world, to prove to the teacher that told you that you wouldn't pass high school, to prove to all those persons that the imposter syndrome took over. What career did you pursue within that time that you are happy that you did today, that you're using it to help others who are going through what you have been through?
Social work. Social work is almost my religion, almost. I mean, the values of social work, anti-oppression, inclusivity, diversity, respect, is who I am. Like, I was born to be a social worker.
Yes.
And I'm so proud to be a social worker, really. Even though I teach psychology at the university, I'm an adjunct psychology professor. Psychology is great, but I feel like social work is more than just counseling. you're advocating for people, you're a part of social action, political action as well. Like you understand the systems, the structures, the barriers that people face, and you're helping to knock those down, because there are a lot of things, like I said, that are not in our control, right? And so we also have to dismantle systems of oppression and not just say it's all in my head. And if I could just get over some psychological thing that's in my head, that everything would be great. Because no, obviously we live in a world that is unjust to many, many people. And it's important to recognize that. And it's also important to be an ally. Because yes, I might not be somebody, you know, who's, let's say, gay, or somebody who's Black or Indigenous, or, you know, who has a disability or whatever, but all oppressions are linked.
Yes.
And I want this message to be very clear. Every single oppression is linked, because if anyone is not treated fairly, doesn't matter what the reason is, that is not okay. And we all need to stand together and say no to that system that oppresses anyone. And that is the only way all of these problems that we face in the world will go away.
I am 100% in support of that and in agreement with that. We're not even going by the question that I haven't seen.
Forget about the question.
We're just flowing naturally. Because we need to learn from each other. And we need to get something from Dr. Resilient today.
I like that, Dr. Resilience. I love it.
Yeah.
I love that word. It just spoke to me, because instead of focusing on the negative, because as human beings, it's very easy to say, oh, I went through this and went through that. And I definitely don't want to be a pity case. Like, you know, like, no, that's not empowering. And definitely when you're working with clients or with students, it's not empowering to just look down on them and say, oh, you poor thing, and you can't do this and you can't do that. No, let's look at what I've gained from this. Okay. Because I went through what I went through, now look at, I'm actually understand, have empathy, have compassion. I'm a great social worker for that reason. I'm a good educator. I have passion in my heart. I can bring people together, right? And I'm like, I can use it in many, many different ways. I also see this now as my life purpose, right? I really feel like this is what I'm meant to do. So everyone needs a sense of purpose in their life. And for me, I think the word resilience is very powerful, because it means despite adversity, there is growth. And, you know, from that, you get more determination. And it's a positive way of looking at barriers and challenges that a person goes through.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for that. And my next question is going to be based off what you just shared with us. What advice do you have for an individual who may be facing similar obstacles and struggle with their own self-worth at this point? You have been through it, but what advice would you have for somebody who's going through it now, presently?
It's hard. Advice is so hard to hear when you are in a negative space. And when you don't care, when you get to that point where you actually don't even care if you get hurt, you know, motivation is an interesting thing. And I know we teach this in social work or psychology. How do you motivate clients to change? So change does come within. It's not something you can like tell people, hey, do this, do that, and they're going to just do it. They have to find somewhere deep down some motivation that makes sense to them. So I know this is a slightly off topic, but when I used to work with offenders in the justice system, and, you know, I was like, well, why are you here? And they said, well, you know, somebody tried to hurt my kid, and so I beat them up, and I was just trying to protect my kid or whatever. And I said, okay, but like, look where you are now, like you're in prison, right? And so how are you protecting your kid right now? You know? And so that's the thing, right? Like people need to know their limits and their boundaries, what they can do, because he essentially stabbed someone, and you know, then he was incarcerated. So I mean, yes, anger happens. And like I said, we can get triggered, but but that doesn't mean that other people can push us to do what we, don't want to do. So for him, his internal motivation for getting out, I said, the only way you're going to get out is if you do this program, because my job was to teach this cognitive behavioral therapy program, and to comply by your conditions and to go to supervision, just follow through with your sentencing, right? Because if you don't, you're going to be in here longer. If you're going to kick and scream and be difficult, you're just going to be in here longer. And so for him, his motivation, he's like, well, how can I find motivation? And, all of this. And so we found that by looking at his, a picture of his child, he would pull that out. And so from being super angry and frustrated, he would just calm down. So that for him was his motivation, that his motivation to get out of jail was to see his kid. So I'm just using that example to say that as a therapist, as an educator, as somebody from the outside, you might think you know what motivates that person, but that's not the same for everybody.
Yes.
Right? It's like a personal trainer at the gym, like, oh, you want to lose weight? And you're like, no, I don't want to lose weight. I just want to feel energetic. Or, we can't assume anything. So what I would suggest to, a person who wants to help themselves, but they don't know how, is to understand that you were born with internal wisdom. I really, really believe that, because I believe my sense of spirituality, like I said, is that I believe that each of us has energy. Each of us has the divine within them. I really, really do think that. So there is goodness in everyone. You could be the hardest criminal, but you have some goodness because, that is your life force. That is what you are. But you might not see it. You might not recognize it or tap into it. So I think instead of looking for answers from the outside all the time, reading books, asking other people, what should I do? How should I fix myself? Sitting by yourself, reflecting, praying, meditating, whatever it is that you do, but asking yourself, what would make me happy, right? Like, yes, it would be nice if people like me, but at the end of the day, why do you want to be liked? Like, go deeper with that thought, right? Like, why do you want to be liked by people? So I feel accepted. Okay, so why do you want to be accepted? So that I love myself. Okay, so will you love yourself if other people like you? Like, is that it? How will you love yourself? So you keep going further and further with the questions with yourself until you find that deep purpose. And the truth is, I think everybody needs a sense of purpose, why they're alive. And if they have that purpose, then that is what will be their compass to getting out of that dark spot. Because if you feel like life is meaningless, there's nothing valuable you can contribute, there's nothing you can do with your life, then you're not going to feel that, right? And it could be something as simple as maybe doing volunteer work. And I think that works really miracles, because yeah, you have a bad situation, but you know what? There are a lot of people out there who have really bad situations. And now being a social worker for years, like I mean, I've seen all kinds of things. I'm like, what I went through was nothing compared to what other people go through. And I think that's really important as well, because it put things in context, right? And you realize that, pain and suffering is a common human experience. And so how can I say that I shouldn't be here because I have pain and suffering? Pain and suffering is a part of being human. But pain and suffering doesn't mean that you have to kill yourself or hurt yourself. It could simply mean that it's an educational tool that God is using through you to empower you to do something else. Because God may not be able to speak to you, but maybe through these things, you're finding your way to where you're supposed to go, right?
Everybody pain and suffering comes in different way, but it's still pain and suffering.
Still pain and suffering. That's how growth happens though, right? It's like if you go to the gym and you don't expect to have some pain from lifting weights, you're not really working out, right? So there will always be a little bit of strain in order to build
Discomfort,
strength.
something.
Otherwise, you can't
Yes.
build any strength, you know.
Yes.
Resistance is important. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that Dr. Vinita, I know you have a whole lot to offer the world. This
thank
story
you.
will continue to work together to spread this story far and wide globally, to impact lives, to help others. I am sure people are waiting to hear your story, to be inspired, to be motivated, to know that regardless of what, you can do it. My last
That's my
question.
only goal, my only dream now. Like, I don't want any awards. I don't want
Yes.
trophies. I want no stuff. I just really want to feel like I'm helping people. That's all I care about now.
Very important. Sorry,
That's okay.
sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry about that. How do you envision your future, both personally and in terms of impact your way to make the world different?
That's okay. It's totally fine. So this is the interesting thing that has happened to me, is that I would say for the longest time since I surrendered to the universe, I don't plan anything. I know that sounds very odd because especially in the profession we're in, you usually train people to have certain goals or, you know, work towards certain goals, SMART goals and all of that. But I actually, for my life, it hasn't worked. Anything I planned never actually happened. It sort of just somehow I arrived at a certain place and it just sort of fell into my lap. That's when you know you're doing what you're supposed to do if things happen. So I have no idea what's planned, to be quite honest with you. Up until a few years ago, I had no idea I'd have this kind of life, right? Like even I won a beauty pageant, which I never thought in a million years I would, because remember,
Awesome.
I hated myself. I thought like I was ugly. I thought there's no way. And so from being a girl who hated what she looked like to being a beauty queen pageant person, I was like what the hell? And
That's
so,
a major
and
step.
it just happened. It wasn't like I was trying or made an effort. And, you know, like a lot of things I've done have sort of come to me in different ways. And I feel like those are sort of like God sending messages in different ways. Like when you think you can't do something, you can. Okay. So my attitude now is that if somebody asks me to do something, just like you asked me if I want to be on the show or like just opportunities come up, I just say, okay, you know, like I don't say no. And that might or might not be healthy, depends. But I just sort of roll with it. I just see where life goes. I don't actually plan out my life, which I know for some people that's terrifying not to know. But I've actually lived in different places. I've, you know, like traveled different places, gone different places, met different people. And so my dream is actually, I am a global person. I'm as much as I'm proud to be Canadian, I don't see, because I'm such a spiritual person again, I don't see boundaries and, you know, countries and like, you know, geography as a barrier to what I have to offer and for, you know, receiving and giving. And so I would love to just travel around the world. Like that's all I actually want to do. I want to attend conferences. I want to meet wonderful people who have the same vision, who are mediators, who are conflict resolution people, peace ambassadors, and people who just want to make the world a better place. And I just want to do more of this and just like, you know, be positive and be open to the universe. So I have actually no plans. I don't know what I'll be doing in the next 5 years.
All of that. I share the same sentiment. I can relate to all of that. I just want to connect with people globally.
That's it.
That like-minded.
That's it. I'm actually searching for it. It's actually hard to find. And especially we live in silos these days. I work online, I teach online, you know, I've done school online. So it's very hard to sometimes connect, but you know, thank you again for reaching out to me.
Of course, my pleasure, my pleasure. I should be thanking you for sharing your wealth of information.
it's an exchange, right? So
Yes.
energy comes out, energy is received, and
Definitely so.
yeah, it
I know
expands.
time is going. Sorry, Dr. Vinita. I know time is going, and I know time is very important to all of us. I want to ask our guest, anyone have a question for Dr. Vinita Piri? Any question, you can type in the chat, or you can unmute and ask it now, or if you're okay. No question? Okay,
Sure.
Michael, that's no
Oh.
question.
Michael,
Yes.
you had a question?
Yes, and I know you said that words, what we tell ourselves is most powerful. Persons can tell us negative words and we can believe it. And also
Yeah.
we can tell ourselves the opposite and also believe it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
just to share, I would like to know just a few of your self-affirmation that empower
Yeah.
you to keep going and inspire you.
So the one that I had to really fight is I am enough. Oh my gosh, because my whole life I felt I was not enough. Because society made me feel like I was not welcome, I was not included, and I wasn't worthy. So I always say I am enough and I am worthy. So those are two, and it doesn't have to be long-winded stuff. These are just simple statements. But what I also tell clients now to do when I do psychotherapy is I say, look in the mirror every day. It's like medication. They're like, come on, this is ridiculous. I'm like, no, it's like medication. Okay. It's just like you take your vitamin pill every day, do the same thing. You're going to do it every day. You wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror, and you don't just say, yeah, I love myself, but you have to say it with conviction. You say, look in the mirror and say, I love you. You are worthy. You have purpose. Like, you talk to yourself and you say it with passion. You say it like you mean it.
Wow.
And you say that every morning and you say it every night. And you do that before you go to bed and first thing in the morning. And you do that over and over and over again. And you know what? At some point, your brain is like, yes, it's true.
Wow.
Right?
Thank you, Michael, for the question.
It's a
And
great
thank
question.
you, Dr. Vinita, for that. That answer blew me off my feet.
That is like prayer.
Yes.
That's what it's like, because you're speaking to yourself.
Yes. The self-assurance.
But you have to mean it, you see.
Yes, that's right. That's
at
very
first
important.
it's like, I don't mean it. I don't feel it, right? But as you get stronger with it, just like you're building weight, like using your muscles and lifting weights, it's the same thing. At some point, you're like, I actually like how this feels. So you start getting really into it. And you start seeing all kinds of it. Oh, you look really good today, right? And like, you just started, yeah, then you just, and you really feel it. And it's amazing, because now when I walk, like, people are like, you walk with a straight back now, like you walk with confidence. And I'm like, I do. And like, you used to slouch before I go, like, because you don't realize unconsciously this stuff filters in different ways. And I do walk with confidence because I do genuinely love myself. I do genuinely like who I am. And it's a gift, because actually a lot of people in this world do not.
Yes, they live with it forever, self-hate forever. So that's a major transformation, and I am sure that we are all inspired by your story. Dr. Vinita, any other question, or can I move into Dr. Vinita's closing remarks? Any other question? Okay, I guess we can move. Dr. Vinita, could you give us your closing remarks, please?
So again, I just wanted to thank you again for providing this platform for me to share my experiences. And it's wonderful to be in the company of other people who are accepting and understanding and open to hearing. I wanted to share a little bit about the fact that this is National Vision Health Month in Canada, and it's an important cause that's dear to my heart, because without the help of the Canadian National Institute of the Blind, I wouldn't have been able to get through school.
It's your show, go right ahead.
I wouldn't have been able to get through anything, because Canadian National Institute of the Blind provided me with the technology that I could use to blow up screens, to filter light and all of that, so that I could do school, so I could, do my PhD, so I could do, all the things that I wanted to do using technology. So I really think technology is such a powerful tool. It's also a way that we can convene here. We can speak around the world. And so I'm really pro technology. And one really wonderful thing, Canada already is wonderful because we have universal healthcare, which is a great thing and it's really needed. But also Dr. Asha Seth, she was a former senator who first introduced a motion in Parliament here for the National Health Month. And basically, they're in the process of passing a new bill in Canada, which is C-284. And it's basically an act, a strategy for eye care. So just like now dentistry, and people are starting to recognize a lot of health problems come from not having good oral hygiene, people are also recognizing the importance of providing eye health care as well. These are two very important things that we need to function. And so basically the act would help to improve access to eye care and vision loss rehabilitation services. The limbic cell deficiency that I suffer with now, it is actually a new condition. So my cornea does not reproduce cells. And so I will gradually lose more and more vision as I get older. And so that is scary. Already it's been hard, but I do really believe in technology and advancement in science. Yes. And I know that this is something that's really important. A lot of people do have vision loss. Some people, they get into car accidents, they can't see the next day. I mean, some people it happens to abruptly, and some of us, we've always had something, but then it's gradually like we're losing it. So it's like a gradual grief. But I do know that the CNIB also provides Braille lessons. They also have taught cooking classes. So even people who are low vision, low sighted, they can actually, because we have other senses, right? And so not just focusing on vision, but I love cooking, for example, and I like wine tasting because, sense of smell and texture and cooking with your hands, right? You have to learn how to rely on other senses when you cannot rely on your vision anymore. And, there are a lot of things about that relate to macular degeneration and all of this. But essentially, all I wanted to say is that if you are Canadian, if you could support the bill C-284, it is currently being passed through. Yeah.
Please repeat that, Doctor.
Yeah, it's Bill C-284, and it is really to support vision health for all Canadians coast to coast. And, also you can find out more through the cnib.ca, which stands for the Canadian National Institute of the Blind. But I honestly feel so lucky that I am Canadian, that I had access to this service. My doctor referred me when I was a child, but they made me feel that I wasn't alone. And there are always community supports available. I was fortunate I had family as well, but some people don't even have family. And it's important to understand that we're part of a community and we're part of society. And, reach out for help. If you're suffering, if you're in pain, if you're suffering from mental illness as well, mental health counseling is available. And we're very fortunate in Canada. There's Bounce Back, there's, through Homewood Health, there's so many great services through CAMH and all kinds of mental health services where you can get help and you shouldn't suffer alone.
That would be good. Is it possible at any point, Dr. Vinita, that you could maybe put a video together to post in the group to sensitize people about it?
Sure.
Or if you want to, a video would be better. People prefer listening than reading.
Yeah, so sure. Anytime, or I'm even happy to talk specifically. Sure,
yeah. Convenience, yes.
Of course.
Thank you so much for that. So I'll go right now to the call of action. I'm inviting you all, the members, to invite new people in the group. Invite people in the group. Whenever we post, please like and comment and share. We want to keep an interactive community as we connect for one goal. One aim, one goal, to connect, to support, to empower, and to help each other. So as I go right into my summary, as we're getting closer to this time, so we'll wrap up. Our special guest, Dr. Vinita Puri, has left us with a renewed sense of determination, a deeper understanding of power of resilience, and the belief that success is achievable in the face of adversity. I believe in that. So now I want to give thanks to our special guest again, Dr. Vinita Puri. Would like to sincerely thank you for accepting our invitation and wholeheartedly sharing your remarkable story with us, which beautifully unveils the journey of resilience and success, leaving a lasting impact on everyone. We thank you so much, Dr. Puri, for coming today, Dr. Vinita, and for sharing with us. To our amazing guest, oh Lord, we have Thompson. Thompson, you're here. Welcome, Thompson. Just a minute, I know the time is going.
It's
Thompson,
okay.
could you unmute, or if you want to come on camera and just greet us, please? We are both closing up. I think you're checking in from Africa, and the time difference.
Oh,
I know that was, yes.
Nice.
Thomas, could you unmute, or if you can come on camera?
What a group, all the different continents. I love it. This is great. I'm in my tribe here.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thomas?
Yeah, how are you? Very good evening to you.
Oh, God. You know, we're almost closing up, but we're still happy to have you. You saw our topic. Do you have any question or any suggestion, any comment for Dr. Vinita Puri?
Unfortunately, I really joined pretty late because of the time differential. I didn't really. I thought it was like supposed to be 10:30, but I realized that like I was an hour late.
Oh, I am so sorry. You know what? Next time when we're planning our event, we're going to ensure that because we connect globally, we want to ensure that everybody
inclusive, yes.
Yes, inclusive with the time difference. So right. I'm really sorry, but we're happy to have you. We're happy to have you. So as you know, Dr. Puri, you share a lot with us, and you'll be able to watch a recording. So don't go anywhere. You stay with us until we're finished. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Okay, good. Yes, as again, I said, thank you to our guest. Thank you for attending and contributing to an inspiring discussion that emphasized the power of resilience and the pursuit of success. So what Dr. Vinita Puri had shared with us today, I am sure we are all inspired and we are motivated. And for me, Doctor, I'm inviting you to come back. You have a lot to share.
Honor. Yes.
You're aiming to impact the world. I'm right on board with you. So I'll invite you to come back at any time convenient to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your time.
Please come back. Oh, the children in the background. Hello, children. Hello. Hello from Canada. Hello from UK. Nice to see you.
Yeah, from Nigeria.
Oh, very from nice. Nigeria, right. So we have Canada connection, UK connection, Nigeria. Oh, we're doing good. We're doing good.
Yes. That's right.
So I want to thank you all for coming today. Friday is almost finished here in Canada. What time is it?
It is almost 6 o'clock.
Almost 6 o'clock here. What time do you have, Thomas?
It's about 8 minutes to 11 p.m.
Wow, see the time difference? Yeah, thank you. So thank you, everyone. Ghanaian in Jamaica. How did I leave out my country? I apologize. So we're connecting from Canada, Jamaica, Nigeria, and the United Kingdom.
Very nice.
Today. And there are other persons in the group, but we connect globally. One aim, one purpose.
We should have a get together sometime. We should all meet up somewhere in the world.
Yes, definitely will. Definitely will. Thank you all for coming. Nice to have you. And we will continue to connect, to empower, to inspire each other and to work together towards one goal. Thank you all for coming. Have an amazing weekend. Some of us are in weekend already, some of us are not, but all of us, I wish you all an amazing weekend. Bye for now. Thank you. Dr. Vinita, thank you so
Bye.
much. My guest, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.